Hello, good morning. It's Friday morning. It's 8 after 10, so it means it's time for the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman. This is the Real Estate Fix on your hometown station, KHTS 98.1 FM and AM 1220. For those of you interested in calling in, the number, as always, is 661-298-KHTS. That's 661-298-5487. For those of you who are listening to the show and want to send me an email, please do so. You can reach me at thefixwithrich@gmail.com. Again, that's thefixwithrich, no spaces, thefixwithrich@gmail.com. We thought that was clever because the name of the show is The Real Estate Fix. So I'm here to talk to you about real estate, to answer real estate questions, to fix your problems. And we've got a good show today. We're going to do a little market update for you because it's more of the same, unfortunately, there. But I have some interesting facts from the Board of Realtors. We're going to talk about the Mortgage Bankers Association. I'm sorry, I read this article last week, and I couldn't bring it to the show last week because I just had to do some research, and I had to finish laughing over it first. But the Mortgage Bankers Association put out a story that is, well, if you enjoy the absurd, if you find comedy of the absurd funny, you will find this hysterical. But it's under the heading of Consider Your Source. We'll talk about that. We have a special guest in studio today. Dan from CVA is coming in to talk to us about the importance of termite and what to do with extermination and kind of how to take care of your house with that stuff. So he'll be on with us shortly. And we're also going to do my favorite segment, the Bad Bank of the Week. And this week we're talking about specialized loan servicing, the good people at SLS. Those of you who have an SLS mortgage who all just puckered when you heard that, you're going to enjoy this story. Or maybe you won't. It's more of the same. But we're going to talk about them a little bit. Now, my standard disclaimer, I am not an attorney and I do not give legal advice. I am a California realtor. I've held a real estate license for over 30 years. I've been helping people with foreclosure defense and all manner of real estate problems for free for about as long. The opinions I express and the advice I give is strictly my own. I would encourage anyone who has real estate issues, accounting issues, tax issues, to also check in with the relevant experts, including attorneys, accountants, etc. And should you need any experts like that, feel free to go to the website, call me, give me whatever. I'm more than happy to provide referrals. I'm a big source of referrals for these sorts of things. I've got very, very good accountants I can recommend to you, very, very good attorneys I can recommend to you, one of which is my wife, who, by the way, will be in studio next week with us. We're very excited about that. I'm very excited about that. My wife's going to be in joining us, Jane, the world's greatest real estate attorney, as far as I'm concerned. My wife, Jane's going to be in here next week. But we got a lot of stuff to get to, so let's get started. So let's talk a market update. We've got some great data from the Southland Regional Association of Realtors. Now, I'm a very consider your source sort of guy with all things. If you choose to accept the information or not is up to you, but consider your source with these things always. This is coming from SRAR, the Southland Regional Association of Realtors, of which I am a proud member. I think SRAR does a great job. They're a really good group. They do some crazy things too, but any large group will do that, especially when it's peopled by realtors, but it's fantastic. Big fan, but they have really good numbers that they put out, and it's important we pay attention. So let's talk about these. These just came out. These are the March numbers, 2023. The median sales price in our area is now down to $730,000 for the average. That includes condos and townhomes. Average single-family residence, we're down 9% year over year. So those of you who, when I got on the air in April of last year and I said the real estate market is going to drop roughly 10% in the next year, those of you who sent me emails that said I was wrong, well, joke's on you. 9% according to in our area, according to the Southland Regional Association of Realtors. By the way, I don't take any great pleasure in being right about the market being down. I wish it was up. I'm just telling you, know which way the wind is blowing. You know whether you need to take a jacket. That's how this works. So, yeah, we're down 9% overall. The average sales price in our area for single-family median sales price for single-family homes is $769,000. That's down, right? Wait for it, 10% year over year. So if someone told you in April of last year that the market was going to be down by about 10% the year following, they were predicting pretty dead on. Condos down a little more. The average median price for a condo in our area is now down to $520,000, and that represents an 11% drop year over year. So condos dropping a little quicker than houses, but not much. Let's talk about what's currently going on. There have been 224 new listings in the month of March. That's down 52%. Last year, April, there were a little over 450. There are only 302 active listings that have come on the market in March. Only 302. That's down 22%. So 224 new listings, down 52%. 302 active listings, down 22%. And the most important number, the number of pending sales. In March, 164 properties went pending. That means they went into escrow. Doesn't mean they closed. Just means they went into escrow. And that number is down a whopping 59% since last year. So April of last year, There were well over 250 deals that went pending in March. Now there are only 164. So if you're one of those 164, congratulations. There were 211 closed sales in May. That's down 39%. And the year-to-date sales volume is, and this is the one that kills the market, is 0.39 billion, which is 44% down. So we are selling 44% fewer houses March of 2023 than we were selling in March of 2022. The other number left here is that the average days on market has gone way up. Right now it's about 45 days, whereas a year ago it was only about 30 days. So we're up quite a bit from, so it's taking longer to sell houses. So what's the upshot of all this data? The market is down. Sales prices are down. The number of sales is down. The number of available properties coming on the market is down. In general, the real estate market as a whole has shrunk. It is contracted, and that's all because of the interest rate. That is just what it is. Now, getting into the market update a little bit further, just to try to give you guys some guidance as to what's coming next. The key word here, the buzzword you're going to be hearing all summer long in every report about real estate is going to be all about affordability. Affordability is the buzzword. Affordability, affordability, affordability. You're going to hear this a million times. And what does that mean? That means houses are becoming less affordable. Rent is becoming less affordable. Again, 44%, this is a number I have ingrained in my memory now, 44% of people who live in California are renters. That is way higher than the national average. And not only that, the rent that they pay is way, way higher. We're trying to fix that, but one client at a time. And those of you who called in about the various programs we were talking about last week and who called over at the Mortgage Hub, we'd like to thank Sam, our friend of the Mortgage Hub. He's a friend of the show and a sponsor of the show and the best darn lender I know of. So if you need a refi or a loan or getting any of that, contact me. I'll get you in contact with Sam, or you can go to the website and contact Sam as well. But Sam Chon from the Mortgage Hub is fantastic. And those of you who called in after yesterday's show, you're finding out there are all kinds of zero down and low down move-in programs, all sorts of assistance programs out there. We will get you into a house. We got to get you out of this renting craziness. Anyway, let's go on. There was a research, there's a company called John Burns Research who did a really fascinating study that I got into this week. 62% of all consumer surveys said that the magic number for interest rates is 5.5%. Now, the reason that's important is because everyone seems to think, whether it's real or not is irrelevant, that the general zeitgeist is that a mortgage rate, the mortgage rate at 5.5% is historically normal. We're well over that now. As a matter of fact, this week the rate went up a little bit. Some people will tell you it's around 7. Some will tell you it's a little lower. The reality is the average right now is about 6.75 on a 30-year mortgage. On a 15, it's about 5.875. And those numbers are both up about a little less than a quarter, a little more than a quarter than they were last week. So just in the last week, the mortgage rate has jumped. And that means it's going to cost you a lot more to buy a house this week than it did last. And it's going to cost you a lot more than it did a year ago. But that 5.5 number becomes important because that's kind of become the magic number with the public. What dictates most of the real estate market is a combination of the interest rate and consumer confidence. Those are the two biggest indicators there are. And when consumers are saying 5.5 is what we feel is a regular rate, at least according to this John Burns research, which is a pretty good firm, that's quote unquote a historically normal rate in most people's heads, that becomes your magic number. So the upshot of all this, prices are going to continue to waffle. Affordability is still going to be a problem. There's still going to be fewer houses on the market because of this. There are going to be fewer people buying them because of this. All about affordability until that rate comes down to apparently 5.5% or lower. The reason that's important is I get asked all the time, well, Rich, you talk about the interest rate all the time. Now, the interest rate affects the market because it is the single biggest indicator as to what the real estate market is going to do, is the interest rate. What does it need to be at for us to be healthy? And the answer, apparently, according to the good people at John Burns Research, is 5.5%. So 70 in the same report, 71% of people surveyed, a good-sized survey, I think it was about 10,000 people I surveyed, 71% said they wouldn't buy a house with rates above the threshold for 5.5. Also, 55%, not to be confused with the 5.5, 55% said it is a bad time to buy a house. Now, I don't know if they're right, wrong, or indifferent. I don't really weigh in on whether it's a good time or a bad time because it's your life dictates what you do. It's rarely going to time the market, unless you're a pretty heavy investor. So for most of us, it's you do what you need to do and your life tells you to. But you should know that as far as the consumer sentiment right now, 5.5% kind of becomes our magic number. 71% of not necessarily people in the market, but just people who are surveyed, said it's way too high to buy right now, and 55% said it's a bad time to buy. So, and again, the interest rate went up last week, so now most people will say we're up about 7%. You can usually, if you're diligent about it and you got good credit, you can usually find a 30-year fix at about 6.75 right now. But again, that's higher. So, we're in all kinds of trouble. We talked about the local numbers. Let's talk about some national numbers, which also belie this exact same thing. According to the good people at CNBC, resale home sales have fallen another 2.5% nationally just in March, 22% lower, the number of sales, nationally 22% lower than March of 2022. National inventory is down 41% compared to pre-COVID numbers, 2019 numbers. So we're selling a lot of houses, we're selling for a lot of money during the pandemic, made about 20% on average during the course of the pandemic, and now a lot of that's going away. The number of listings overall is down 17% just in March, between now and March of last year. Again, these are national numbers. Our local numbers we are down 52%, nationally down 17%, which you should infer from that is we're a very high-cost area, and the high-cost areas are getting hit harder. And to underlie that, homes priced over $1 million are down 29% compared to March of 2022. So if you're in one of the higher ranges, if you're over $1 million, you're down 29%. The number of sales is down 29% in your price range. Now the good news is, the one bit of good news is homes priced between $250,000 and $500,000. These are national numbers. You're not going to find a whole lot of houses in Southern California at $250,000. But the houses priced between $250,000 and $500,000 were only down 14% volume. First-time buyers made up 28%. First-time home buyers made up 28% of that metric in March, and investors made up 17%. So again, you're seeing a lot fewer investors in the market. You're seeing a lot more first-time home buyers in the market, and the number of first-time home buyers, if you're over $1 million, you're down 29%. Rest of the market's down about 22%. But if you're a first-time buyer, it's only down about 14%. So there's still first-time buyers out there, and God bless them. And if you're out there looking as a first-time buyer, we think you're great. We'd like to get you out of an apartment, get you into a house. So yeah, give us a call. Give somebody a call. Get into the game. And last but not least, mortgage applications, purchase mortgage applications. These are people who are applying for mortgages for purchases, was down 10% just in the last week. So not as many people getting mortgages. The market is not in good shape. Prices are devaluating. It's not great news. That all being said, you can beat this, but again, like anything, know what's going on. If you know what you're doing, if you know which way the wind is blowing, you know whether to take a jacket or not. It's very much the same thing here. And it's going to get worse, by the way. I keep saying this. We're going to lose another 5% by the end of the year. I was saying 10%. I've revised that back since the failure of Silicon Valley Bank and a few other things that were good. But the Fed at their next meeting will raise the interest rate again, probably a quarter point. We'll see how the mortgage market reacts, but there's a very, very good chance that we're over 7.5 by the end of the year. I hope we don't hit 8. That would be catastrophic. But there's a very good chance the mortgage rate will be up over 7.5 by the end of the year. And I'm telling you this, by the end of the year, prices will be down another 5%. If I'm wrong, you can all write in and tell me I was wrong. But in the meantime, that's what's going to happen. Now, I read a story. I want to move on to our next story now. That's the market in a nutshell. I want to move on to our next story fairly quickly. This is something that was so funny, I just couldn't resist sharing with you guys. The Mortgage Bankers Association. I know a lot of very good mortgage bankers, so when I rail against the Mortgage Bankers Association, please understand I'm not making fun or calling out all mortgage bankers. There are some very good people in that business. My friend Sam is spectacular. I know a lot of people locally in town who are very good at this, so I'm not pointing the finger at you. I'm pointing the finger at the association because they put out a report that is ridiculous. According to the Mortgage Bankers Association, again, not a group historically, it's got a great track record for, accuracy and truth, is claiming that housing is, I'm just going to read you the headline, housing is so unaffordable that banks are losing money for each mortgage they finance for the first time ever. According to the good people at the Mortgage Bankers Association, every loan that they set up, that a mortgage bank sets up for you, because you're buying a house or you're buying a new house or whatever, every loan that they set up so far in 2023 has cost them, they've lost an average of $301 per loan. So every loan that they set up in origination, which is very expensive, costs thousands of dollars to originate a loan, to the consumer, they're claiming that despite you paying thousands of dollars to originate a loan, they're losing $301 per loan, which is ridiculous. In 2022, independent mortgage banks and mortgage subsidiaries, charter banks, lost an average of $301 for every mortgage they financed. No, they didn't. The association sent a recent report that represents a 113% decrease from last year's average income of $2,339 for every mortgage they set up. So think about that for a second. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of mortgages set up in last year, and the banks made on average $2,339 on just the setup of the loan. But now suddenly they're losing $301. I take such contempt for these figures. And they're saying that's the first time that's happened since they bought a watch this in 2008. This is nonsense, but I'll go on. MBA's vice president, the Mortgage Bankers Association, vice president of industry analytics, Maria Walsh, said that prospective buyers are holding back from the market as mortgage rates hover near a 20-year high, and because of that, home prices are still elevated, and as a result, they're losing money. Now, if you can draw the correlation there, I don't. What's really happening is they're losing money. If they are losing money, is because they cannot fire people quickly enough to meet the downturn that we're currently in. And as evidenced by that, and this is why I love this report, because according to them, banks and mortgage companies spent an average of $10,000 to finance each and every home loan in 2022, which is a cost increase of 23%. So we should really pour one out for the mortgage banking industry, because apparently they're just not making enough on the mortgages that they originate. Those poor guys. And I felt bad for them. I did. I was going to send them presents. I was going to organize a telethon to raise money for the Mortgage Bankers Association, because I felt so bad for them right up until I read this. Bank of America's profits. This is, by the way, all in the first quarter of this year. Bank of America's profits in the first quarter of 2023 grew by 15%. Their net interest income alone, this is the money Bank of America makes on the interest on money they have loaned out, 99% of it in mortgages, rose by 25% to $14.4 billion. So tell me again how they're losing money on every loan, because I'm confused. Let me say that again. Bank of America's profits grew by 15% last quarter. Their net interest income rose by 25% to $14.4 billion. Let's not just pick on Bank of America. Chase's profits grew by 52% last quarter. Their net interest income rose by 49% to $20.8 billion. They made $20.8 billion in 3 months. But yeah, they're not making enough money setting up mortgages. Wells Fargo's profits grew by 45% in the last quarter. Their net interest income rose by 45% to $20.7 billion. And just because I don't want to leave them out, let's get all big four. Citigroup, who is sort of seems to be the redheaded stepchild of this group. Citigroup's profits were only up 52% last quarter. Their net interest income only rose by 17%, which I feel bad for them, because Bank of America rose by 25%, Chase rose by 49%, Wells Fargo rose by 45%, but poor Citi only rose by 17% to a net profit of $21.4 billion. So yeah, they made $21.4 billion, but let's all cry a little tear, a little sad loss tear, because they're just not making enough money on mortgage origination. The truth is they're not firing people quickly enough in their origination departments to adjust to the demand, which they should have they should know something about forecasting this. They are banks, they are servicers, their mortgage forecasting should be pretty good. I knew this was coming. I said so on the air. I don't know why I knew this, but apparently the Mortgage Bankers Association didn't. You needed to downsize if you have too many people on staff. It is unfair and it is dishonest to say that because you ran your industry poorly, you ran your business poorly, when you are clearly making outrageous profits, that the consumer is not you're doing the consumer a favor. You're not making enough money, because I guarantee you this article is groundwork for more of this. We're going to be hearing about the poor sad Mortgage Bankers Association and how all the mortgage bankers are just not making enough money. Those poor fellas. We're going to hear more of this because there is legislation pending to try to curtail a lot of this, and this is their attempt to stop it. We'll be talking about more of this later, but if you love the absurd, I love that these guys. My grandmother would say, crying with a loaf of bread under your arm. One of her expressions. These guys are making money hand over fist, and they're trying to put a public face on saying, we're not making enough money. That's obscene. That's ridiculous. It is silly, and it should be called out. I wrote a letter to the Mortgage Bankers Association telling them exactly this. I guarantee you they will not read it. But hey, at least we're out there, and at least you guys know. Do not trust what the Mortgage Bankers Association says. Now, that is not to be confused with mortgage bankers. Again, mortgage bankers are lovely people. I know people locally who are lovely, totally trustworthy, fantastic, but their association is lying to you. And that's the other that. So, anyway, thanks for listening on that. That was loads of fun. We'll be back shortly. We're going to go to commercial here in a minute, pay some bills as always. And when we come back, we'll have our special in-studio guest, Dan from CVA. We're going to talk about termite and extermination and why that's important. And then our final piece will be Bad Bank of the Week, which is good this week. You guys are going to want to hang in there for this because, we got a whopper this week. So let's go to commercial. We'll again pay some bills. When we come back, we'll have special guest Dan from CVA, Termite and Exterminators. I'm Rich Szerman, and this is the Real Estate Fix with Rich Szerman on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Hello, welcome back. I'm Rich Szerman with the Real Estate Fix with Rich Szerman on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. And for those of you just coming into the show, you picked an opportune time to come in. We have with us today special guest Dan Caballero from CVA Exterminators, a company I've been using for years. They're fantastic. I get a lot of questions all the time, and I had a couple of questions this week at the website or at the email address, so thank you guys for writing in. About termite, because it seems to be something we all kind of take for granted, or about termite inspections, I should say, pest inspections, I should say. It's one of these things we take for granted, and if you are not dealing with it, it could become a massive problem. So I asked Dan if he'd come in, and thank you for coming in. I appreciate you coming in today. It was very nice of you to spend some time with us to talk about specifically this. So let's start with the most basic thing there is, Dan. What is a termite report? Why is it necessary when someone's buying or selling a home?
Okay, so a termite report is actually what we call a wood-destroying organism report. So we look for it's a report that comes from an inspection. The inspection looks for any kind of wood-destroying organisms that may be affecting the structure or damaging the structure, as well as conducive conditions which may lead to a wood-destroying problem. Organism problem. So that's what it is. It describes what's going on with the house and gives you an idea of that type of health of the house. So it's important when you're buying a house.
So any type of dry rot, it's not, because everybody thinks it's a termite report, it's only looking for termites or other bugs.
Right.
And that's the least of it, because there's also, you're looking at dry rot, you're looking at all sort of what could become dry rot. The other thing I get a lot, and I think we should talk about a little bit, is in that report, God bless the state of California, the report is split into two separate sections. Right? Section 1, right, famously, and Section 2. Mm. And those of you who are realtors out there are smirking right now because you guys know what the difference between Section 1 and Section 2 is. Or if you bought a house and had to deal with this, you know the difference. But otherwise, you have no clue. So what is the difference between Section 1 and Section 2 in a termite report?
So Section 1 are evidence of active infestation or infection.
So anything that is a problem.
Anything that actually is a problem. So you have termites, you have dry rot, you have some type of fungal infection. Section 2 items are conditions conducive to infestation or infection. So this could be a moisture problem, an earth-to-wood contact, a plumbing leak, a loose toilet, stuff like that.
So is it fair to say Section 1 is anything that is a problem? Hey, you need to deal with this. And Section 2 is this could become a problem. It's sort of buyer beware.
Basically, if you leave it long enough, it could turn into a problem. Some things may not eventually turn into a problem, but it's good for buyers to know that they have something that could potentially be a problem later on.
And typically your Section 1 has to be, depending on the type of financing you're getting, typically you have to clear Section 1 in order to qualify, right?
It used to be that a termite inspection was required through the real estate contract, but now mostly buyers are ordering termite inspections for their own information, just like they do a home inspection. So it depends on whether or not that requirement for an inspection and for a clearance is on the contract. If it's not, then it's usually a negotiable item that's handled, outside of the escrow.
You'd be crazy if you're buying a house. If you're selling one as well, but if you're buying a house especially, you'd be crazy not to get a termite report. Just like any other report, I would say this is as important, if not more in some cases, than even a physical inspection report, which we talked a little about last week.
I agree.
Inspect, and you can't just have your brother Joe who used to work on a construction site come and take a look. Nothing wrong with having them come by. Another point of view is always good, but you want to contract with professionals. You want to contract with a professional. In this case, extermination company. I recommend CVA very high. Personally speaking, I will not buy a house, and I will not recommend to my clients to buy a house unless we've had an inspection, and in this case, an inspection by CVA, because you need to know if you're walking into a problem or not. You need to know if you're walking into a money pit, and you got to figure it out. So I think there's still some, I could be wrong about this, but there's still some financing that requires a clear Section 1 termite. But otherwise, it's not required anymore. So unless your realtor put in the contract, we do it in all of our contracts in my office, that you're going to do a termite report, and most importantly, it is a contingency of the deal. You might not have the right to, you can always do one, but it might not do you any good. So if you're buying a house, make sure you're getting a termite report. And if you're selling one, you should do a termite report. What I advise to my clients who are sellers is let's do the report now. When we list the house, let's do it now so that you know what you're getting into. And more importantly, you can disclose to the buyer, hey, we got the report done. This is what they said. We already had it fixed, or whatever the situation is. And, here you go. It's just a better way to do business. A well-informed buyer is a happy buyer. So what else do people need to know about termite reports? What other stuff do you see kind of on a regular basis about this sort of thing?
Well, we see a lot of things. In the recent past, because people were just trying to buy a house, a lot of them were skipping the termite reports. Ooh. And so we're getting a lot of people calling up and say, hey, I just bought a house and I got this and I got that going on. They send us pictures, and then we send somebody out to take a look at it. And we're finding out that a lot of people bought homes with problems. So that's rough. So it's really smart that they get an inspection done before. And obviously for buyers it's important. For
everything.
sellers, it's good to know what's heading your way. A lot of realtors don't want complications of other issues that are going on, but it's just wise, like you
but
do.
you're not avoiding a complication if you wait till later. I've never met the seller who's fooled by this. They may not find out. It may take them a week, a month. It may take them a year, but they're going to find out. They're going to come back to the realtor, and they're going to come back to the seller.
Right.
We had one recently with you guys. I'm sure you remember this. We had a house in Valencia, December of last year, where the seller, lovely people, lovely family, but they were sure because they just had their eaves painted that everything was fine. And I said, well, yeah, okay, then great, then we'll have a clear termite report. Oh, we don't need to do one. Guys, we need to do one. You need to do one because it's kind of become the standard. It's a good idea to have for the buyer. Let's just do one. And they agreed to do it. I can't remember if it was you or somebody else from the office, but I remember I was there when the termite inspection was going on, and he took a pen out and he pushed it through the eave. Just literally through this freshly painted eave, just went right through it, as if there was no wood there at all. It looked like just paint just giving. And that whole second by 15 feet of eave had to be replaced. I don't know who the painter is who painted over it, but it all had to be replaced.
Right.
That seller would have found, or that buyer rather, would have found that out, and they would have wanted to come back to the seller. I don't know if they would have prevailed or not. We read our contracts pretty well, but why have the problem? Just get it done now, and it's no longer an issue.
Exactly. Just inspect it.
Yeah, just get it inspected. One of the things I also wanted to talk about a little bit, outside of just the importance of getting an inspection, which is fairly obvious to everybody now, I hope, is maintenance as well. Because you guys don't just do inspections and stuff, which is what we see it for on the real estate end, but you guys also do regular monthly service, regular extermination, bugs, pests, that sort of thing.
Right.
Why now? I know in my house, because we've talked about this at my house, why it's important to get that done. Because if you don't get that sort of stuff done, those little critters, aside from being annoyances and the occasional mosquito bites or ants or whatever it is that we how it manifests, it also does damage to the property if you're not careful.
Yeah, they can. And so when we're out there regularly, if we're doing regular service, our technicians are out there and they're trained to look for things that might be unusual that they should alert the homeowners about. So it's not just maintaining a relatively pest-free home, but it's also making sure that someone's got eyes on it occasionally because, we don't go into our yards until maybe the summer sometimes. And now with the mosquitoes, people don't want to go out in their yards. But it's good that somebody's looking around usually. Well,
at a house ago, you guys were good enough to find, I go in the yard and play in the yard. I don't go in the yard to inspect my house. But I got a note saying, hey, we sprayed for I think it was ants they were spraying for. We sprayed for ants, all done. Hey, by the way, that eave up there on the second story, looks a little wonky, and we're seeing some kind of debris on the roof below it. We might want to check that out. And sure enough, we found out we had termites.
Right.
And because we found the infestation quick, we replaced about 18 inches of eave, and we were done. It cost me a couple $100, no big deal. But this was on the outside of my house on the second story.
Right.
I wouldn't go up there, and even if I had gone up there, I still wouldn't have known what I was looking at.
Right.
So luckily for me, one of your techs brought this to our attention, and instead of this repair costing thousands and thousands of dollars or causing goodness knows what other damage, it was like $150, $200. I sent a handyman up there. He fixed it. We were done. So yeah, it's incredibly, incredibly important. Maintenance is important. Inspection is and vigilance. You got to constantly look at it as important. Just out of curiosity, I don't usually talk about costs and things on the air, but I get a lot of questions about this. What do you guys charge? I don't know if I honestly haven't seen my own bill. What do you guys charge per month or per year to do regular maintenance on a house?
So regular maintenance starts at around $40 per month, which is not a lot. That's that depends on the type of regularity you want your maintenance services to come. So they can come either bi-monthly or quarterly. But monthly-wise, it's that. And we're going to be having a special at the Home and Garden Show.
Oh,
so if you stop by and see our booth, you can ask questions about bugs, and you can ask, questions about how we can service your house.
Yeah, if you guys are coming out to the Home and Garden Show, and you all should, it's a fantastic show. KHTS puts it on every year, and it's really, really informative. There's not a whole lot about a house or about gardening or anything that's tangential to it that you cannot learn by simply walking through the KHTS Home and Garden Show even briefly. And you guys will be there, which is great. So if you are at the Home and Garden Show, stop by. You can ask Dan or any of the guys there from CVA termite questions. But so basically for $400 and change a year, you're saving yourself potentially thousands, if not tens of thousands, in damage. Not to mention you don't have critters running around. You don't have ants and mosquitoes and all those other things that would become pests in the summer and damage property in the winter. It seems like a pretty good deal to me. And you guys are running a special at the home show, even better.
Even better.
What, does that mean I have to go to the home show to get my next renewal, or do I get that automatically because I'm a burgeoning local radio personality now?
Well, we can talk about it.
Oh, yes. Hey, those of you listening, especially my family, if you're listening to this, you said I'd get nothing. I'm actually getting something out of the radio show. So this is the kind of celebrity I now wield. You know that. Still can't. No other place does manifest, but apparently I get the Home and Garden Show on termite and pest control without having to go. I'll be there anyway, but about not having to go to the Home and Garden Show. So that's my big celebrity moment. Well, thank you, Dan, for coming in, and thank you for providing my big celebrity speech. I appreciate that.
Wow, I appreciate it.
That's the biggest thing I've gotten so far. That's wonderful. I appreciate that because as everyone, if those of you who know me know, the only reason I'm doing a radio show is for what I can get from me. That's really no, not even close. No, we do this because we do foreclosure protection and all that good stuff for free and have for many years. We do literally tens of thousands of pro bono work, if not hundreds of thousands of pro bono work every year, and we're proud of that, and we're not stopping doing that. So it is absolutely not for me, but it is interesting. I get that, so thank you. I appreciate that. That's nice.
Great.
We'll see you at the Home and Garden Show. Thank you very much for coming in. Is there anything I missed? Anything
My
else you want to
pleasure.
touch on?
No, I think
before
you
we wrap
got
up?
most of it. Just thank you for having us.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you want to go to another break? Pay some more bills, roll some more commercials. We'll run along on the third. Yeah. Do I have to wait 4 more minutes? We can fill 4 more minutes. You sure? Okay, we're going to go to another break, and we'll come back. We'll have a longer segment about Bad Bank of the Week, because it's going to be a funny one. I want you guys to hear it. It's going to be good. Thanks, Dan, for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Rich Szerman on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station, and this is the Real Estate Fix with Rich. And thank you guys for those of you who hung in through the commercial, or those of you who are just tuning in. I appreciate it, because you're going to love this segment. I want to, again, before I get into this, I want to say again thank you to Dan from CVA Exterminators for coming in and talking to us about termite reports and pest control and why that's important, because, yeah, get it inspected. If you're buying or selling a house, do an inspection. Do us all a favor and do an inspection. It's just a good idea. And those of you looking for Dan's information, you can find it on our website. We'll post it up there for you if you want to contact him, or you can contact me. And as always, if you have a question, you don't want to call on the station, or you don't want to use the website, you can also, or the email address, you can always call me direct. I give out my personal cell phone number on the air. Been doing it for years. It's not a problem. My personal cell phone is 661-714-1400. I'll say it one more time. My personal cell phone, 661-714-1400. If you do want to call me, please feel free. If I don't answer, don't get mad. Just send me a text. I get a lot of calls because I give out my personal phone number on the air. And I'd love to hear from you, and I'll be happy to help you. I've actually received a couple of texts while we're sitting here today. I'm going to call back when we get out of the air. But anyway, I wanted to move on to this Bad Bank of the Week. This will be our last segment of the show this week because it's just so good. Our Bad Bank of the Week this week is Specialized Loan Servicing, otherwise known as SLS. And again, like I said at the top of the show, those of you who have SLS as your mortgage bank, when you heard that, you cringed a little bit because you know the kind of stuff I'm going to talk about. And before I get too much into SLS, I want to also mention we've talked about Carrington Mortgage. We've talked about SLS repeatedly. We've talked about PHH even more. All of these banks do the same thing. Now, it's important to understand that when a bank misbehaves, you can't go when a bank steals from you, for example. Let's say they've done something horrendous like Wells Fargo when it was stealing from its clients last year, which, by the way, is still going on. But if you catch your bank stealing from you, you cannot go to local law enforcement and say, they've stolen from me. Our sheriff's department is not equipped to deal with that. It's not their job. Nor can you go to any other law enforcement to deal with this. You're supposed to be able to go to an agency called the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's a horrible name, but it's the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. The CFPB is federally to housing loans, to mortgage loans, to student debt, and to credit cards what the FCC is to stocks. And the idea is, they were only chartered in 2008, the idea is that the CFPB is there to be the cop on the beat. They're there to say to companies like SLS or PHH or some of these others that when you misbehave, when you have done wrong, we are here to punish you. We are here to do that, to act as a negative enforcement so you don't do that, because otherwise the banks will all just simply follow a profit margin because that's all they ever do. And as a result of that, they will take advantage of you and everybody else if they can get away with it. So Let's get into the SLS and why SLS is the Bad Bank of the Week. And again, one last thing before we do that, one last little piece of background I want to read you. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, you all know what that is now. And by the way, anyone listening, if you work at the CFPB and you are willing to come on the air, I would love to have you. Because so far, I cannot find anyone from the CFPB who is willing to come on air. You work for a federal agency whose job it is to police the mortgage industry, and yet you don't want to come on and talk about the mortgage industry. I don't understand that. But we'll see if we can fix that in the future. Anyway, on May 11, 2020, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau issued a consent order, which is a fine, against Specialized Loan Servicing, which is a mortgage loan servicer, in this case in Colorado. They actually have branches in all 50 states. The closest one here, I think, is in Tarzana. But they have big offices in 3 states. Colorado is one. As of February 29, 2020, SLS serviced a portfolio of mortgage loans worth about $112.69 billion. Let's round up. Let's say $113 billion. So as of 2020, and it's higher now, in 2020, SLS had $113 billion in loans that they were servicing. The CFPB investigation found that since January of 2014, now this is a report that came out in 2020, so that's 8 years, SLS violated the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, otherwise known as RESPA, R-E-S-P-A. It's a law. It's implementing its Regulation X and the Consumer Financial Protection Act of 2010 by taking prohibited foreclosure actions against mortgage borrowers who are entitled to protection from foreclosure. They took people's homes they had no right to take. And by failing to send or timely send evaluation notices to mortgage borrowers who are entitled to them, in some cases, SLS obtained foreclosure judgments and conducted foreclosure sales on borrowers' home when Regulation X would have entitled the borrowers to protection from foreclosure had SLS complied with that rule. Again, SLS broke the law. They took people's homes they had no right to take, which I consider a pretty significant crime. I'm sure the homeowners who had their homes taken away from them consider it a pretty significant crime too. But here, the consent order only required SLS to pay $775,000 in monetary relief to consumers, $500,000 to waive $500,000 in borrower deficiencies, and to pay another $250,000. So basically, they paid out $1 million. Again, a company that has 113 billion with a B mortgages, $113 billion in mortgages. But they were fined $1,500,000 all told by the CFPB for spending 8 years stealing people's homes. I'm going to say that again. CFPB in this case, as spelled out, or SLS rather, in this case, as spelled out by the CFPB, the regulatory agency, was stealing people's homes, was foreclosing unlawfully for 8 years. Again, $113 billion company, they got a whopping $1.5 million fine, split up into 3 parts. That is equivalent to finding Jeffrey Dahmer eating someone and finding him, giving him a health code violation for $10. I'm sorry, Mr. Dahmer, I realize you're in the middle of enjoying that foot, but your kitchen's kind of dirty. Here's a fine for $10. Ordinarily, what most people would think is we should arrest you and imprison you for murder and cannibalism, but, this is all we can do. I want to know why it is the CFPB cannot manage this. They know that they are a $113 billion company. They know that they only fined them $1.5 million, which is nothing. It's couch cushion money. Just like the fine to PHH we talked about 2 weeks ago. It is nothing to these people. It is acceptable loss. Why is the CFPB, who is supposed to be the regulatory body, who is supposed to be the cop on the block, why are they so feckless? Why are they so toothless? Now, I'm quite sure they know what they're doing. I know some people at the CFPB, and they're good people, and they're trying hard. I am quite sure it's because that is what they are limited to do. That is the maximum amount they could do. Which brings me to my next point. If you are a politician working in the state of California, you are going to hear from my office in the next 30 days. And I'm going to go on the air and I'm going to tell people exactly what my experience was in talking to you about this. Because I'm so sick and tired of talking about other issues that do not affect my clients. If you want to talk about abortion, great, go ahead. If you want to talk about the Second Amendment, fabulous, all well and good. But find some time in your day to talk about this. Because the mortgage industry is essentially unregulated. They act as if they're regulated, but every time a regulation comes up, they seem to manage to knock it down. It goes away a few years later, if it was ever fully implemented to begin with. SLS was caught taking people's homes. I don't know how to overstate that. They were taking people's homes. They spent 8 years that we know about violating provisions and taking people's homes that they otherwise could not have taken. And their only penalty for this was $1.5 million. Did anyone get their homes back? No. No one got their homes back. Not a single person who SLS took their home illegally got their house back. No one. It is obscene to me, and it should be obscene to you if you're listening. It is wrong that if a bank takes your home, if a bank steals from you, your only recourse is you can file a case with the CFPB, and maybe in the next, 8 to 10 years, they might get around to doing something. But if you want protection yourself, you better find some help. And if you don't find your way to me, because I do this for free and have for some time, and even if you come to me, you may still have to hire an attorney. So why is it a consumer who has been stolen from, a consumer who their bank has ripped off, has to spend thousands, potentially tens of thousands, and in some cases hundreds of thousands of dollars to enforce terms that were illegal? If someone comes and steals my bicycle, I can go to the sheriff's department and say, this guy stole my bike. And when they catch the guy, I'll eventually get my bike back. But if this happens in a mortgage, you don't get your house back. If you might get 10 cents as part of some sort of settlement if you're really lucky, but the odds are very, very high you're not getting any money out of it. And you're certainly not getting anything that's going to help you. You just lost your house because the bank took advantage of you. And I find that obscene. And if you're a local politician, and that's where this seems to have to happen, because there doesn't seem to be any political will whatsoever to make the changes necessary to curtail this industry, and I'm sure there's a coincidence that most politicians get money to run for office from places like Wall Street, who the largest component for most things on Wall Street, for most industries on Wall Street, most companies on Wall Street, is mortgage banking. It is incredibly profitable. Again, Bank of America, in just 3 months, made $14 billion, over $14 billion. Chase, January, February, March, just 3 months, they made $20.8 billion. Now that's just on interest payments. That's not all the other stuff. That's not investments. That's just money they made on interest. Wells Fargo made $20.7 billion. Citi made $21.4. I don't know how much SLS made because that number was harder to find. I'm sure that's intentional as well. But again, SLS is $113 billion in mortgages. They only had to pay $1.5 million loan, or fine rather, $1.5 million in fines for stealing people's houses. So imagine that scenario. You have an SLS loan. They tell you, and this is a true story, that, oh, no problem, we realize there was a death in your client's family, so that inane piece of paperwork that everything hangs on, we'll give you an extra week to get that in. We get it in 1 day later, and they cancel the file anyway. Now, this is a house with equity. This is a house SLS I'm sure would very much like to foreclose on, because, and they tell you they don't get the equity, but they do. They know they can be in hold, they know they can charge whatever they want and get away with it, and that's why they're after this house. So SLS, PHH, all these other guys, I'm coming for you. I've been doing it for 30 years, and we're up in the ante now. We absolutely are. And if you're a local politician, you can either help, or I'm going to tell people why you're not. This is beyond political ideology. This has nothing to do with Democrat or Republican. This isn't tribal. Everyone who has a home is subject to this. SLS, if they steal your house, they don't care if you're a Republican. They don't care if you're a Democrat. They don't care what political affiliation you are in any way, shape, or form. You should care, and you should make your representatives care. Because until they start to care about this issue, and until they start to get on board, and they start to curtail these banks and for their bad behavior, and until judges start giving houses back when banks steal them, this isn't going to change. $1.5 million fine to a company that has $113 billion in mortgage loans is a joke. Just like it was a joke with the recent PHH fine we talked about. These are ridiculous. This needs to be fixed. It's obscene. So we're going to be talking about that in the weeks to come. So you can remember, it's not like I didn't tell everybody. We will be chatting about this in the weeks to come because this has to change. And if nobody else is willing to change it, I will. So those of you who are nice enough to tune in today, thank you. I realize sometimes I sound like an unhinged crazy person. That is true because I'm passionate about this. A bank shouldn't be allowed to steal your house and get away with it. And that's what we're allowing to happen in this country, and that must stop. So thank you guys for listening.